This is Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool, nerdy happenings at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond. From books and concerts to search engines and story times, the library nerds are in and ready to show you that being a nerd can be cool. Get ready, get set, get nerdy. Welcome back to Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool things happening at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond, straight from the people who know it best, library nerds. I'm Marty Achatz, Adult Programming Coordinator for Peter White Public Library, and joining me in NEA headquarters, that's Nerd Executive Alliance headquarters today, is Communications Coordinator at PWPL, Andrea Marsh. Welcome back to the podcast, Andrea.
Thanks for having me, Marty.
You know, I'm always excited to get nerdy with you, Andrea. And it's been quite a whirlwind start to the summer, with summer reading kicking off, concerts on the steps, and Spielberg's summer, and Art Week this week when we're recording. And of course, it's your job to make sure that people know all about what's happening at PWPL, being the communications coordinator. Of course, there's been some rainy concert days where we've had to move things inside, but we can't talk. But can't we talk about something more pleasant?
Oh,
yes,
sneaky.
There's another clue about what we're going to be talking about today. But before we move on to our big topic for today, we have to read your character a little more. Terrible, I know. Terrible, terrible clues. We have to play another round of Word on the Nerd, Andrea. And you know how this goes. I'm going to ask you 3 library nerd questions about yourself, and you have to answer them for the listeners. So, Andrea, are you ready to play
Word on the Nerd?
So, Andrea, this is going to be a little game of Would You Rather again. I'm going to ask you 3 Would You Rather questions, and you have to truthfully answer them. And today, all of your questions have to do with big books.
Oh, I like big books, and I cannot lie.
Here we go. So, here's your first question. If all the books in the world were on fire, and you could only save one of them, would you rather save Moby Dick?
Oh.
Or would you rather save War and Peace?
Oh. Confession, I haven't read either of them.
Okay, so maybe this isn't going to be that big of a loss for you.
No. Let's think of subject matter.
Okay.
War and Peace. I was supposed to take a class in undergrad. I don't know what happened, but did not take that class.
Okay.
Can you walk me through the premise?
Well, it's all about the Russian Revolution and War and Peace and huge books.
Peace. They're not talking about a piece of pie.
No, they're not talking about
no
pie.
All
and
right.
then, of course, Moby Dick is all about the
big old
whale, yes,
that just eats everything up. I am partial to animals.
Okay.
And if reincarnation does exist, I really hope I'm reincarnated into a whale. So I'm going to go with Moby Dick.
Moby Dick, okay. I'm not sure I agree with your reasoning there, but, I'll stick with Herman Melville as well, Moby Dick. No offense to Leo Tolstoy.
Yeah,
but,
it's a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah,
Both
but
are.
War and Peace is going down in ashes if I have a choice, so.
Okay,
all right.
Well.
All right, so here's your second question, and they may get a little harder from here on out. Would you rather live in the universe of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or would you rather live in the universe of Les Miserables by Victor Hugo?
All right, so over the weekend, I attended my first LARPing event.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
And LARPing, for all of you who do not know, live action role play. It was one of the coolest things I have witnessed. We were transcended into a different time period. We were all dressed in our medieval garb. Mine was a little 1950s gypsy. I didn't have the appropriate stuff for a last minute costume. But we all were chanting, "Hear he, hear he!" And there was a fight pit of death, and there was fighting, and corsets, and long skirts,
Lusty
and
wenches
leather,
and
food, and we were eating with our hands, but we still had plastic Solo cups, which I will remember to bring my own drinking vessel next time. But I am 100% going to say Tolkien. Lord of the Rings.
trilogy.
Heck yeah. Now, the big question is, what character would I be? And I would probably be a hobbit.
You're about that height.
I am about that height.
You know, your feet are not quite that hairy.
No, if I think hard, maybe more hair will grow. It would be either that or an elf, because, who wouldn't want to be an elf? They're so agile. They're beautiful. They're just calm, and they have so much composure to their character. I don't think I could do that. Wow. I'm definitely I'm elf. Yeah. Or there's a wizard. I can't remember his name. Something. The Brown. He's like the forest wizard. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't be Gandalf the Grey, but his brother. So and so the Brown, who lives in the forest.
So and so the Brown.
Yeah. I would just be like a creepy forest person. Or I'd be one of the Ents, the walking trees. Did I say that correctly?
Ents, yeah.
I could be a walking tree.
I could see you as an elf. I could see you as a hobbit. I don't know about. I'm trying to picture wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that.
Although elves are kind of mystical too. So.
I'm not. I'm more clumsy.
So you're definitely a hobbit.
Yeah, I think I'm just a hobbit, which is fine. They like to eat a lot.
And actually, who wants to live in Les Miserables, where you get thrown into jail for stealing a loaf of bread?
I'm going to be honest with you. I forgot you even mentioned that. So, Tolkien all the way.
Tolkien all the way. Okay. So, that was a good one. So, here's your last question. Mm-hmm. This might be pretty hard for you. Would you rather listen to Meryl Streep reading Walt Whitman's The Entire Leaves of Grass? Or would you rather listen to Tom Hanks reading the complete poems of Emily Dickinson?
You really know how to get me, don't you? Backstory.
Yes.
For All Booked Up, we just read Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and Meryl Streep is the audiobook narrator. And I've said this many, many times before, and I will say it again. It is like silk running through your ears. Listening to her narrate these characters really brings them to life. Really makes them friends of yours. And then Tom Hanks, in my eyes, is the sexiest man alive. From 1980 until forever.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he can do no wrong. Tom Hanks in Toy Story. Whoo! That was my favorite movie growing up. Oh, and Big. He is just so juvenile.
Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, gosh. Tearjerker.
Yeah.
What were some other big ones of his? Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to pull in All Booked Up again, but just finished reading August selection, The Women, which is about a Vietnam nurse and her battle with PTSD. And all I could think about was Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What a remarkable movie. He does everything. I can't think of any other. What was the one? Wilson with the volleyball.
Oh, yeah.
Castaway. Wow.
So fantastic.
Boring, but good.
Boring?
Yeah.
That is not a boring movie.
I have ADHD and watching.
Oh my God.
I don't mind watching Tom Hanks.
Honestly, him and Emma Thompson in Saving Mr. Banks, where he plays Walt
Oh
Disney.
my gosh, you forgot that one. That is so good. I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. Wow.
So he can play Walt Disney. He can play a toy cowboy. He can play a castaway.
Wasn't he a mermaid in Splash?
No, he fell in love with the mermaid, Daryl Hannah.
Oh gosh, that was another good one.
Philadelphia.
Didn't see that one.
Oh my God, you got to see that one. He won an Oscar for that.
There's another one I'm missing out on. Wasn't he Captain Sully?
Didn't he played the
guy who landed the plane in the Hudson.
In the Hudson, yeah, that was fantastic. Directed by Clint Eastwood. So.
Oh no way.
So.
Missed that
so
one.
who are you gonna pick?
Tom Hanks.
You're gonna pick
over
Meryl Streep.
I'm gonna do it. Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks reading Emily Dickinson.
He's not American Sweetheart. What would be the male equivalent to America's Sweetheart? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, that's what Tom Hanks is.
Okay.
Tune in and leave us a comment at Marsh at pwpl.info. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about
All
that.
right. Well, we got Tom Hanks reading the complete poems of Emily Dickinson for you.
Yeah. I mean, Emily Dickinson, she's not a bad poet either. I haven't read too much of her work, but anything that Tom reads is going to be a good time.
All right. Well, there you go. We have come to the end of this big book edition of Word on the Nerd, this time with Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator for Peter White Public Library. And now the time has come, Andrea, for us to read the clues and figure out what is on your mind today. Yes, that is another very terrible, terrible clue as to what today's subject is. So why don't you share with us the word? So, Andrea, what is on your mind today?
Let's talk about Marty Atkins applying for Arts Midwest NEA Big Read with the book selection of Can We Talk About Something More Pleasant by Roz Chast. Holy Watt. One, congratulations.
Thank you.
It was $16,600 that Marty got awarded to PWPL for programming for March 2025. Cue ham horn. Wah, 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 wah. So it was, once again, as you know, we're office mates, so I watched Marty go through this whole process, which was labor intensive, pretty stressful.
Yeah.
And
it was like 2 months of, well, maybe like about a month and a half of figuring this out.
Of pretty intensive work. And it's not just like typing, I'm going to need this for this, but it was also coordinating with other organizations in the community of like, how can we make this a collective program.
Yeah.
And when I say collective, it's like, okay, let's bring in NMU, let's bring in the Alzheimer's Association, let's figure out how we can get more seniors involved, how can we get more young people to care about elderly care, because spoiler alert, Can We Talk About Something More Pleasant is about the author handling and caretaking and coping with her aging parents.
Right. And I mean, that sounds like, and it's a graphic memoir, so this is a little bit different.
It's not serious, though. I laughed my, can I swear?
You can say but.
I laughed my tuchus off, which actually fits because it is a Jewish family.
Yes.
And so there is some Yiddish to be had.
And Roz Chast is a New Yorker cartoonist, so she knows how to draw really well and set up situations that are just so funny, but also really, really serious as well. I think that people are going to love this book. I mean, honestly, I read it, I fell in love with it, and I was like, there's no way that we can't do this book.
I read it after you said, like, okay, this is the one we're choosing, and I'm very bipartial to graphic novels. I'm an artist myself, and I just like reading pictures.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. So it was approachable from an accessibility standpoint where, you know, even if you're not a strong reader or a voracious reader, you still can pick this up and the images can carry you through the text. And the text is all speech bubbles. And since Roz Chast is a New Yorker comic artist, her style is really unique because it's like shaky. Like her drawings are not, I don't want to say perfect, but they have a lot of character and movement in it. So I think that's also very approachable because they're not like hyper realistic. So
it's not like you're reading a comic book at all.
No. And it seems like she approaches everything in like this 4-panel fashion where which is really hard to do because you have 4 panels, 4 speech bubbles to try to accomplish some sort of cohesive like thought and framework, and then at the same time she's making you laugh and cry at the same in the same page. So I got a little ADD on that one. Let's try to backtrack. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Going back to our parents. So this book really resonated with me because 3 years ago, my grandmother, she was going through her end-of-life transition. And a lot of the things that she's discussing in here, I already experienced by being a caretaker to my grandmother. And thankfully, our family has a good sense of humor, like Roz Chass. And I think she's telling us, like, you have to find the funny in your parents' or your grandparents' deterioration, because it's just challenging on an emotional level, a social level, a financial level.
Well, and you really get to fall in love with her parents. I really fell in love with her parents, both her father and her mother. Her mother's sort of this kind of overbearing, retired school principal, and her father is this, like, this guy who's basically tiptoed around his wife his whole life.
Her life. And, like, I can't give any spoiler alerts, but I'm pretty sure we know what's going to happen at the end of this one. There's going to be 2 less characters.
Yeah.
But her mother, there's 2 standout things about her mother. They have this room in her parents' house called the Crazy Closet, where everything just gets shoved in this closet.
Yeah.
And
And her parents never throw anything out.
No, can you believe that? How stereotypical of them not to throw anything out. And that was another thing. Well, we'll go back to the Crazy Closet for a second, because there was an issue with the Crazy Closet. I'm sure we all have a crazy closet in our lives. It may not be a closet.
Crazy office.
It could be a drawer. It could be a whole basement. It could be bins and bins of storage that you refuse to open up because you don't know what kind of madness lies underneath the covers.
I was talking to yesterday. She says in her car, the back of her car is like sedimentary. Because on the bottom is like layers from fall, and then there's layers from winter, and then there's layers from spring, and now she's on her summer layers.
See, we all have a little crazy in us. And the best part is, not only did she render that in a true comic way where she drew the Crazy Closet, but she also has snapshots, some photos of, like, all the pencils that her parents accumulated because they just wouldn't throw anything away. Right. And that is hilarious with me, because when I go to my parents' house, I'm like, this is what we have to go through. Mm-hmm. And there is a form, I don't know what it's called, but it's like finished death cleansing. There's a term for it. Maybe we'll add it in the notes. But already, as my parents are aging, and they're not even in their 70s yet, I'm like, all right, we got to start now, because we're not doing this. And Roz Chass, she told me that it's just better to start doing it now, slow and low.
Start doing it now. Because basically what she did is she started going through it, became very overwhelmed, and then hired someone and said, just throw it, because I can't deal with it.
Pitch it. And so going back to the Crazy Closet, Roz instructed her mother not to go into the Crazy Closet because she is an elderly woman now. They live in Brooklyn. They don't have any help. Roz is the only child. Good luck. I don't know how you're going to make it through, but I believe in you. And she falls. And she writes this beautiful poem about her not listening to her better judgment, a.k.a. her daughter, and taking this risk to try to get in the Crazy Closet, and she fell. And that was the moment where I really fell in love with her. Yeah. Is that, there was personal work from her mother included in this, and it was downright hilarious.
Yeah. I honestly, I think that the mother, the father is just this kind of sweet, bumbling, quiet guy who's like literally went around his wife, basically made his life into not trying to make his wife not upset.
Yeah. Wow.
They love each other too. A great deal. Obviously the affection is there for it, because when his wife starts really deteriorating, you see him sort of falling apart, like he doesn't know what to do with his life anymore. No,
and in fact, he asks the same question over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and so it's a little heartbreaking, but it also speaks to intergenerational communication, which is something that I think that one of the reasons why we chose this book for the NEA Big Read, because we have an elderly population here in the UP. And talking about, and sadly, I think that the older generation sometimes becomes overlooked, and somehow seems like almost like they're outmoded and they don't have anything to contribute, which I think is a really sad thing to confront. And, so we're hoping that with this NEA Big Read, we're able to open that communication so that we can learn from this generation that really did remarkable and has done remarkable things in the world and has so much more to give to us,
Yeah. There are a lot of people moving into the UP that are not true Upers. And this was a conversation I was having with some friends last night over some tasty bevs. But how there was a table of 6 of us, and only one individual was a Uper. And all of us, the 6 of us, we all love the UP, but just one was a Uper. And I think that lineage and that story will eventually become diluted if we don't start recording these stories, the mindset, the quirks, the personalities of our intergenerational community. But also, just thinking back to Roz Chast documenting the drawer of pencils in her parents' home, of just, I don't want to say madness behind it, but the logic of, hoarding everything.
Yeah.
And it's these individuals, they went through the Great Depression. And so it's not wrong that they want to keep everything. It's just let's figure out the reasoning behind it, and then we can build some stronger empathy.
Yeah.
And
you think about, again, we've gone through difficult economic times in our lives.
Oh yeah, we have.
We have. But nothing compared to what the Great Depression was, and I mean, I've heard stories from my parents when they were alive of, the struggle just to have food and, and have money and be able to do things that you want to do. And this is that generation that Roz Chast is writing about. I always come back to this idea of when a person dies, when you lose a person, you literally lose an entire library.
Yeah.
And
a connection too. When my grandmother passed, I feel like she was our link to Italy. She was an Italian woman. And I just feel that disconnect now. I feel like I'm not eating as traditional as I would. I don't have that cultural link anymore. It's gone. And my mother, she's doing a really good job of trying to resurrect these old family recipes and doing the extra work to make a batch of pasta that uses 12 eggs, which is that's a lot of processing.
That's a lot of processing.
But so yes, I am not directly dealing with the silent generation anymore, the Great Depression, but the Great Depression and that generation raised my parents, the boomers. And so there are still some threads of that, of hoarding and trying to be as independent as they can. And growing up as a kid in the 90s, it was known that you're going to go to college and you're going to move away. And I think that's biting everybody in the tuchus. It's biting everybody in the tuchus because, you need a community to take care of each other, especially in these really stressful end-of-life experiences where, it's a financial burden, which is another thing that we can talk about, too, during the NEA Big Read in March, is, how much you have to financially prepare to take care of your parents because you're a working individual. You can't do it all on your own. It takes physical strength because you're moving around a body that really isn't able to bear its own weight. And there's just so much in this book that was an eye-opening experience, and it makes it a little bit more approachable because of the humor that was involved in there.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to... the goal is to spark conversations about serious topics, maybe not so serious topics, too. I mean, we're going to have, writing workshops. We're going to have people libraries where people can check out a person for 15 or 20 minutes and ask them about their lives. What was it like being in the mine? What was it like being a police officer in the 1940s or 50s or whatever it is? Being able to ask those questions and learn something. Because really, that's what's great about books, is that if you and I can sit here and talk about these subjects, and the reason that we're able to talk about those subjects is because we both read this book, and we both have made those personal connections with the book, and that's what the NEA Big Read is all about, and why I think it's such an important program that hopefully will continue forever. With the National Endowment for the Arts. I mean, it's all sometimes politics plays a part in that, but hopefully politics won't play a part in the continuation of this really, really fine program from Arts Midwest and the National Endowment for the Arts.
And what a book to choose, too.
Oh, so good. And I mean, I literally, very specifically chose a book that was the entire opposite of what, well, not the entire opposite, but very different from the first book that I did an NEA Big Read with, which was Joe Harjo's collection of poems. So having a graphic memoir by a New Yorker cartoonist is going to be fantastic. And Roz Chast will not be joining us in person, but will be joining us in person virtually for a conversation. It's not going to be her doing her agent said Roz prefers to just have a conversation where we ask questions,
which is a delight because she's internationally recognized just for her artwork alone. I mean, The New Yorker is a popular magazine. I only read it for the comics. And
Roz Chast is, I mean, I cannot stress how funny Roz Chast is. So, and everybody, all the other libraries that are involved in partnering with us, every time I said, well, they would ask me, what book are you doing? I would say, well, Roz Chast, can't we talk about it? They were like, oh my God, she is so funny.
I bought a copy for my mother, and I'm like, this one will strike a chord with you.
Did she like it? Has she read it yet?
She laughed, and I think she bought a copy for her sister. So we're just like all buying copies, because it's now turned into, it's like a Bible to us. It's like we reference it because it helps us relive these moments that we had with my grandmother as she was transitioning. And it's so funny.
The good thing about the NEA Big Read is it provides free copies of the book.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Cue ham horn.
So we are going to be getting, I think, close to 200 copies of this book to distribute. Maybe 250 copies to distribute.
So, Marty, how does that work out, the distribution of the books?
Well, what we're going to try to do is, we have to order them, and then when it comes closer to the time, because what we want is people to have already read the book by the time we get to the NEA Big Read. So look for, free copies of this book starting in, January or February of next year, 2025, where we can distribute them. And then we have one big night, an opening ceremony kind of thing, kickoff, where we will have copies of that book for people to pick up as well. So, I mean, it's going to be available. You're not going to have to spend money to get this. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit limited, but 250 copies is a lot of copies.
Yeah, put it on your calendar when you hear me make that announcement, because this really is a book that you're going to be able to reference.
And you're going to want to take it and say to somebody else, you have to read this
because
book.
You have to read it.
Yeah.
And once again, it's a graphic novel, so it's approachable for anybody.
You can read this book in probably an hour to an hour and a half at the most.
Okay, you're a speed reader. I took my time with it because I really loved her artwork.
But I also was wading through quite a few other books trying to decide who I was going to do. So,
you made a good choice. You made a real good one.
So, NEA Big Read, March of 2025. Keep an eye on our website for updates. You're going to be hearing a lot about it in the coming months and next year as well. It's going to be March 2025, the NEA Big Read here at Peter White Public Library, thanks to Arts Midwest and thanks to the National Endowment for the Arts for providing these funds. We were the only institution in the state of Michigan to get an NEA Big Read. Here we go. So, I mean, that's a feather in the cap of the UP that we are the NEA Big Read institution for this grant cycle.
Congratulations, Marty.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it was a team effort. I mean, Andrea, I was throwing ideas back and forth with her through this whole process of what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I mean, so, and it really will be a team effort on getting this NEA Big Read to go smoothly, because, it takes a village to do an NEA Big Read. It really does. And that's what it's all about, bringing people together around one book, talking and learning more about each other and what community really is. So there you go. That is the word from Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator here at PWPL, about PWPL's NEA Big Read, scheduled for March of 2025. But I can't let you leave the land of nerd just yet, Andrea. First, we have to find out what you've been reading that's been distracting you recently. It's a little segment on the podcast we call Off the Shelf. All right, Andrea, what book would you like to recommend for today?
All right, so it is the summer season.
Are we talking light popcorn read?
Oh, well, there's a couple of things going on.
Is it British sexy or is it American sexy? That's what I want to know.
This one is American sexy. I'm not reading any British sexy right now. This is in
now,
reference to...
we talked about this on All Booked Up.
Yeah, so...
British sexy is, like... You're still fully clothed and a little sweaty, and
it's just a suggestion.
Yes.
Of the relations that could happen.
Whereas American sexy is,
they just give you the relations.
Okay, so there we go, American sexy. Let's hear it.
So during the summer, I really slow down on my reading because I'm either hiking or biking. I'm a pretty active person. I'm learning this. I have an Apple Watch, and I just got it, and I had to up all my rings. If you're an Apple Watch user, you have these rings. It's like an exercise ring, a movement ring, and a standing ring. I had to up everything by 20%, and I'm still surpassing them by 300%, which is you just don't know how active you are until you have something that...
It's a little tiring working in the office with Andrea sometimes.
Going. So during the summer when the days are longer, I can go for miles.
My favorite story is where you were out biking with your son and one of your son's friends, and you wanted to go someplace else, and his friend said, no.
He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And we only went 3 miles.
Oh my God.
Oh geez, woe is me. Anywho, so during the summer I don't read as much, but I usually always have an audiobook going. Mm-hmm. And the audiobook I just completed was The Women by Kristin Hanna.
Yes.
That is our that is our all booked up August read. Wow!
I just started listening to it.
Wow. So. One, from an audiobook standpoint, the narrator is wonderful. And
not Meryl Streep, but
not Meryl Streep
nice.
Or Tom Hanks, but I don't know her name, but she's still really nice. And it is it highlights the nurses that were involved in Vietnam, and they do get overlooked. And so it's a perspective of that war that you just don't hear. Mm-hmm. And the story involves with her struggles of PTSD, which was really common with Vietnam vets, but her not being recognized as a member
of that,
or as a vet. And so it's a feminist tale. It is PTSD tale. There's a lot of trigger warnings, so just be prepared when you're reading or listening to it. There are some pretty graphic images of war in the text, but I'm really tough with endings. I'm a critic. And I really loved how this book wrapped up.
Did you cry at the end?
I did not cry in this book.
Okay.
I know, which is a big deal.
Do.
It's a big deal because there is so much loss and so much heartache and tragedy wrapped in this plot line. And I didn't cry, but it is living rent free in my head. So yeah, just how the ending comes to be, there is some optimism in it, so you think nothing is gonna go the protagonist's way. She's not gonna make it. I'm gonna tell you she is gonna make it, and it's nothing exciting, but it ends the right way and how it should. So The Women by Kristin Hanna. Put it on your queue list, and I already queued up Nightingale by Kristin Hanna. Amy.
And we got copies of it. We got quite a few copies of The Women here at the library. However, it's a hard book to get your hands on because it's checked out.
So
all the time.
popular right now.
Yeah.
So place your holds today and get ready for August.
Yeah, get it. We did order extra copies because Amy, our wonderful, wonderful adult services department head, checks with book groups as to what we're going to be reading and orders extra copies. For books that she knows are going to be very popular.
Yep. And the same thing on your Libby app if you want to do audiobook. Place your holds early. I went ahead and purchased this on my Audible app.
I did too.
Yeah, there's some books that I just want to have on my archives. So
I saw you doing it. And I looked and I was like, you had like 10 free credits or something on your Audible. And I'm like, I never have extra credits on my Audible.
It was a birthday present from a friend.
Okay.
Yeah, a great birthday present. If you're thinking about, if you don't know what to get somebody.
And you know they're a reader and audiobook person.
They got me a year subscription of Audible, which I already had one, but I mean, I burned through audiobooks because I'm always moving. So that was a really nice gift. So think about that. And then to counterbalance the hardships of the women, I'm reading Emily Henry's Happy Place. That's a juicy beach read.
Okay, this is American
Sexy? This is American Sexy.
Okay, because Kristin Hanna's The Women is not American Sexy.
Not American Sexy at all.
But this is, what is it again? Emily Henry?
Happy Place.
Happy Place.
And you follow 5 best friends that have been best friends since undergrad. And they're growing up. They're all going their separate ways. And there is this breakup that nobody wants, and those 2 individuals are trying to hide it from the people who know them the best. No. How long can they hide it? Are they going to be able to hide their affection from themselves? No, I'm wrapping up. I'm on the last quarter, so I started last night. However, that is a tricky thing. The last quarter of the book, and if you start at 8 p.m., you could finish at 4 a.m. So, I had to put it down because I'm like, I need sleep. So, tonight...
Happy Place.
This afternoon, I hope to wrap it up. And as of right now, I don't know how this book is going to end. Yeah, I don't know if our couple's going to get together, if they're going to break up, if the whole entire friendship is going to dissolve.
And again, this is not polite British sexy.
No, this is American
dirty American
it's
sexy.
It's not smut. I mean, there are some hot and heavy moments, but they keep it pretty clean. They don't go into the details. So,
but it's still American Sexy.
It's still American Sexy, but it's just... It's a rom-com and perfect for the beach where you don't have to think too much about the character development, why this character is doing this. It's more like, oh my gosh, what is she going to do next?
I have an idea for you.
What?
When next time you write a What's New article for Mining Journal, say... I'm going to do all British sexy books.
People would like that.
They probably would.
For someone who is not British or sexy.
But, you explain what British sexy is, and then you give them 5 British sexy books.
Because sometimes, I feel like we're in this, big era of, smut, where it's just, in your face. And, I don't really need to read that. That's why I really like British sexy. It's just suggestive.
Yeah. There's lots of breathless moments, but
breathless moments.
How's that? Breathless
Whispering
moments.
Sweet nothings into the ear.
And you see someone walking across the moors toward you, and that kind of thing. Oh my
gosh, the thoughts that are invoked. So those are my 2 reads.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Day and night.
Totally day and night.
Yeah, totally day and night there.
All right. So we got Kristin. What is her name?
Hanna.
Kristin Hanna, The Women.
It's a palindrome.
And Emily
Henry.
Yeah,
but they're both first and last names.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wow. Okay. All right. So there you go. There you have it. Those are Andrea's recommendations of books that you should pick up off the shelf. And we have come to the end of this week's NEA Big Read episode of Library Nerds with Words. I want to thank Andrea Marsh, Communications Coordinator here at Peter White Public Library, for stopping by Nerd Tower today.
That's a good one.
Come back next week when I will be sitting down with Ben Sargent from Tech Services and Kat Shattuck, our outgoing local history coordinator. Sadness. Let's do one more. Wah, 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 for
Womp,
Kat.
womp, womp, womp.
And we will have a discussion of the Star Trek universe, where we will settle once and for all the question, who is the greater captain, Kirk or Picard? And that's the final frontier. So this will be Kat's final episode podcast appearance, but you don't have to, so you don't want to miss this one, you know. But until that time, everyone, stay nerdy. Thank you for listening to Library Nerds with Words, Peter White Public Library's weekly podcast, giving you the word on what's cool at the library. The theme for the podcast is Happy Clappy by John Bartman, used courtesy of Pixabay. This episode was written and produced by Martin Acketts and sponsored by Peter White Public Library. Until next week, pick up a good book, listen to some good music, watch a good movie, attend a great event, and remember, library nerds are the coolest people around.